Dave Chappelle still in the news regarding his Netflix special, his comedy special. So he's saying he's going to stop doing transgender jokes following the controversy over the closer. Dave's rep told TMZ he won't do jokes about the trans community until we can all laugh together, and said he is open to having discussions with them. The women who organized the walkout of Netflix employees said she invited Dave to talk about the special, but said Dave chose not to show up. Well, Dave's people said no one from Netflix actually reached out to him. Meantime, Jon Stewart defended his friend, calling Dave one of his favorite people on the planet, and said his intentions are never hurtful. All right, Al, so you've seen the special. You are a comic yourself. What do you make of him being open to having discussions and never even doing jokes about transgender individuals ever again?
Well, I mean, it's twofold. One, I'm not surprised. Comics love to talk. You see us on podcasts. We have jobs like this. Joe Rogan, who's a comic, has arguably the largest platform. Jon Stewart, former stand-up comic. We're used to kind of talking through and really almost presenting an argument to the audience and, you know, working backwards from that. So I do understand the sit down. I just worry that this might be one of the situations where I wonder if everybody sitting at the table has good intentions. And I'm not talking about the trans activists. I'm not talking about Dave Chappelle. I'm saying that when you have conversations like this that are nuanced, that just unfortunately leads to people being able to pick at your words, pick at your motives. And I just hope that we are able to have like a conversation that's productive. Because I don't think anybody thinks that Dave Chappelle hates transgender people and wants to see harm done to them. And at the same time, I don't think anybody thinks that transgender people don't like laughter. So clearly these are two parties that can get along. So let's figure out a way to do that and maybe push away any kind of things that are clearly just trying to stir the pot just to stir the pot.
I think something that you said about everyone's intentions, and there's this saying that back in the day, a friend of mine would say, fame or shame, it's all the same game. And in that, it basically means that there's capitalism at play in all of this, whether you're famous for great reasons or you're famous or infamous for not so great reasons. And what I'm hearing, and what my takeaway from the walkout from Netflix was that the quote was, no one is calling for the cancellation of Dave Chappelle. No one's calling for the cancellation of his special. We're calling for for reform and to make sure that people who are putting their lives on the line by telling their stories are advocated for and protected. Dave Chappelle on the other side is saying, I am not against, I'm not transphobic. Now he's saying openly, I'm open to having a conversation. When those two things are the only two things at play, then the table has been placed for a conversation to be had. When there are other intentions behind keeping those two parties separate, and that generally has to do with a lot of money, views, controversy, things that have nothing to do with progressing this conversation forward. And I think that's the stalemate that we're living in right now.
I just have to say, I agree. I totally agree. I think they're open to have a conversation. I'm upset they didn't have one already.
They might, though.
And they might. It just seems like a misunderstanding, maybe, or miscommunication. But I watched the special, too, and he ended by saying no more jokes about transgender until we can all laugh together. He even brought up suicide and discussions that we've had, and there was a whole story to it. The one part that bothered me was when he said, I'm Team TERF, T-E-R-F. And that is someone who's a feminist who doesn't believe that trans women deserve feminist advocacy. That bothered me, I gotta be honest. That's a strong statement. So I do think he has some stuff to answer to. I think he should sit down. Jon Stewart would sit down, I'm sure he would. Let's make this happen and let's let the views go to where it should go.
But then, well, let's remember, we're gonna ride with this forever. So any comedy special that anybody watches where something bothers them, then are we ready to have a conversation about that as well?
But listen to me, Al, you are one of the most empathetic, progressive, kind people I know. You're also a damn good comedian. But if you saw a lot of pushback, even if your intention, you would immediately you would see all these people hurt, saying, Al, we are hurt, and you are jeopardizing our lives. Of course, that's not Dave Chappelle's intention. But somehow the narrative got lost with social media, with everyone's own inserted opinion.
I thought that was strange. I thought that was strange that he doubled down like that. You would want to somehow
sit down and make it right, just like Dave Chappelle does. I commend Dave Chappelle for wanting to make it right. I know you would want to do the same. It doesn't mean that we have to cancel all comedy.
And I don't want it to be this whole, well, it's a slippery slope. But But I do want to say that part of comedy and part of art is pushing you to a place where you might not want to go, just so we can now have this conversation, because we would not be talking about the number of black trans women that are killed today on a Friday if it wasn't for this comedy special. So we have to understand that unless we are willing to be able to go in uncomfortable places, we will continue to have this very placid, very chill situation where black trans women are still dying, but we don't talk about it because it's uncomfortable.
I hope
so I'd rather be uncomfortable and talk about it.
Me too.